Welcome back, fellow animators. In this lesson, we'll finally take a look on how to pose our block character. So, fire up Illustrator and see you there. Before we jump into all the fun posing stuff, I want to give you a brief rundown of how I work with perspectives and how they can help improve the dynamics of your character. And to illustrate this, I've drawn up this mid-air run cycle block character. Now, it doesn't look half bad as it is. I mean, the dynamics are good and the proportions feels okay, but something still feels a bit off. And yes, here's where a little bit of depth will work magic. Now, to make things easy to follow, I've split this section up in two parts, namely placements and bends. These in turn are all based on a simple front camera angle, as camera depths and angles is a whole course in of itself. Anywho, let's start off looking at placements. Now, what do I mean with placements in regards to depth? Well, it just means that everything you place in front of another object is closer to the camera and vice versa. Yep, it's as simple as that. But enough of me talking, let me show you how this works in practice. First thing we'll do is to add some depth to this front leg. So, duplicate it, give it a brighter shade of color. Delete the top point and move it back into place. Now, you can already tell that this leg is pointing towards the camera. How? Well, because of the placement of the lower part in regards to the top part. Let's now fix the back leg, and this time we'll place the lower part behind the top part, as we want the leg to move away from the camera and into the depth. So, duplicate the back leg, shave off any unnecessary points, and give the bottom part a darker shade of color. Yes, the further away from the camera, the darker the shade of color, and vice versa. Let's now repeat the same principles on the arms by making this front arm move into the depth and away from the camera by, once again, splitting it up in two parts and placing each part behind the other with the hand furthest in the back. Then we'll make this arm point towards the camera by placing each part in front of the other with the hand furthest in the front. Now, we only need to give the shoe some depth and we are done. So, drag a copy of the front shoe, make the back part a bit darker as this will become the bottom of the shoe. Then match these 2 points with the bottom of the front shape like so. And drag a copy of the front shape, match these 2 points with the top part, adjust the length so it matches with the bottom. Make the whole shoe a bit wider like so. Group it and done. Let's now just fine-tune this a bit before we move any further. This box shape will help you a lot once you start drawing the detailed shoe itself, as it gives you a good understanding of the depth and angle of the shoe. Let's now do the exact same thing for the back shoe. And remember the placement. The leg is going away from the camera and into the depth, which means we need to move the shoe to the back. Boom. That's it. But first, let's just adjust this a bit more before we move on. Done. And in case you forgot how it looked before, here you go. Quite the difference. And here's what it looks like after adding details to it. Yep, all that good stuff you learned in the previous lesson. Okay, so now that we got the placements locked down, let's talk about bends. And what do I mean with bends? Well, let me show you in this example here. As you can see, we got all the placements in the right order, but it still feels a bit flat, and this has to do with bends. It's actually quite easy. Look here. If something is pointing either downwards and away from the camera or upwards towards the camera, then the horizontal lines bends downwards. And if something moves downwards towards the camera or upwards away from the camera, then the horizontal lines bends upwards. With this newfound knowledge in mind, let's go back and fix those legs. So, as you can see here, this leg is pointing downwards towards the camera, which means we need to bend these lines upwards a bit. And this leg is pointing downwards and away from the camera, which means we need to bend the lines downwards. Done. Now the depth is clear and nice, especially if we compare to how it looked before. Okay, so now that we got some of that depth knowledge in our tool belt, we can move on to some actual posing. And for this, we need a camera, makeup, and a razor sharp attitude. Come in!
Howdy, neighbor. It's not actual posing, it's character posing.
I knew it. I knew it, but I still went there and I bought this camera for my last money and I said, Marcus, this is not posing, it's character posing. But then I went to the makeup shop and I made a total fool of myself. And I have no idea what to do with all of this crap now, so you tell me, neighbor, what am I supposed to do with all of this stuff?
No worries, neighbor. Looking at it now, I mean, I can say this much, that camera looks really heavy, but if you buy me coffee, I'll take it off your back for free. Yeah. No, I'm a good neighbor in that way. People have always told me, man, you're such a good neighbor. Best neighbor. I'm the best neighbor. Yeah. So yeah, just give it to me for free, and I'll take it off your back, and we can move along with our day, and we can go separate ways and see some.
Seriously, dude?
Mm-hmm.
You are the best neighbor ever. I mean, I'm gonna start a neighbor award for you. Only for you. How did you know about this posing stuff, by the way?
I saw you through the window. I spend a lot of time in your window. I like your window. It's one of my favorite windows. I like the reflection I get of myself when I look in your window. I like the warm light from the inside. I like...
Police emergency 378, do you have an emergency?
Yes, I'd like for a policeman to come out here.
You have to tell me the problem, please.
The first part we'll take a look on in regards to posing is angles and how some degrees here and there can alter the whole dynamics of your character. For instance, if we add a bit of angles to this standing fellow right here, you will see how it becomes more alive. So let's start off by rotating this leg out a bit like this. And there, just this one little thing and our character is already a lot more engaging. Another good trick is to angle the shoulders and hips a bit. This tends to make the character less stiff and more natural. Let's just realign that back arm again. Then work in a bit of an angle on this front arm by having it resting on the waist like this. And add a bit of that depth we just talked about. Let's also angle the shoes so they point a little bit more towards the camera. Same goes for this leg. Perfect. If we now put the previous version next to the new one, we can see what a huge difference some angles can make. And for those who are interested, here's what it looks like after adding details. Let's now try something a bit more difficult. Here's a crappy version of a character that is tired. Not only is it extremely stiff, it's unbalanced to the point that it might fall head first towards the ground. So, how can we improve the pose of this character then? Easy. First we need to loosen the upper body up a bit, like so. Then we'll angle this knee inwards to give the character the appearance of not being fully in control of its body. Now we just need to give the character a firm base so it doesn't tip over. But before we do that, let me just explain a little bit more about weight. Every character has a center of gravity, which is the point on the character where the most amount of mass is concentrated. The point itself tends to be somewhere just above the waist, and if this point doesn't have a sufficient amount of support, well, the character falls over. So, how do we know if the center of gravity has enough support? Easy. Try to imagine an invisible line going straight down from the center of gravity to the floor. If the character doesn't have enough support on either side of that line, well, it will feel unbalanced. There's obviously exceptions. For instance, when a character is running, biking or doing something in high speeds in general, well, the counterforce of the wind allows for a more top-heavy position. But for most cases, this technique holds true. Okay, so now that we know a bit more about center of gravity, how do we apply this to our character? Well, let's imagine that invisible line again. And there, You can now see that the character needs a lot more support on this side. So let's angle that left leg all the way out here, and that should do the trick. Done. Now we just need to fine-tune it until it feels more balanced. Okay, that looks good. Now let's have a look on how big of a difference some angles and balance made. And in case you're interested, here's what the final character looks like.
Something extra, something special. I do so much for you guys.
A lot of my best work has come from playing around with different poses. Yep, you don't always need a fancy story. A pose can, by itself, tell a million stories. Oh my god, that is too beautiful. I'm crying tears of joy. I never thought I could say something so incredibly beautiful. Oh my god. So go nuts with your angles and depths. The weirder the better, the lazier the merrier. You get it. Last but certainly not least, we're gonna take a look at the golden rule of all character posing. Yep, I'm of course talking about the line of action. And what is the line of action? Well, it's typically a curved line that acts like a guide for where you want the force to take place in your character. But before you think this has anything to do with Star Wars, let me show you how it applies in practice. Here we have a seemingly stiff skateboarder in desperate need of some line of action. So let's first create a new layer called, yep, you guessed it, line of action. Lock the character layer. Then choose the pen tool, set some spicy stroke color, make it around 7 points thick, and start drawing a curved line from here to around here. The more curved the line is, the more aggressive the pose will be. So in our case, we don't need it to be all too curved. Perfect. Now, lock the line of action layer and unlock the character layer. Then it's just a matter of readjusting the position of the character's body parts so they align with the line of action. This will take a bit of time, so back into speed mode we go. Let's now add a bit more curve and attitude to the line of action itself. And match the position of the character once again. Done. Now, we'll just need to add some nice depth to our character before we move on to the next example. And in case you already forgotten how to add depth, just rewind this video back to the beginning. Once again, this will take a bit of time, so let's speed things up a bit. And we are done. Let's just compare it with the old version so we can get a clear picture of how much that line of action really does. And as you can see, the result speaks for itself. Then, once you add a bit of details, it will look something like this. The last thing we'll do this lesson is to make this angry fellow here look even more angry by, yet again, utilizing the line of action. However, this time we'll bend it the other way. And hopefully this will show you how versatile this technique really is. So create a new layer and name it line of action. Then select the pen tool and start drawing a curve from here to around here. Lock the layer and unlock the character layer. Now, it's just a matter of aligning the character to the line of action and watch how the magic unfolds. And we are done. Let's just compare it with the old version so we can get a clear picture of how much that line of action really does. Then, once you add a bit of details, it will look something like this. Now, run to the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, and high-five yourself.